Go. You're up.
I'm up?
Yep, you're up.
Here we go. Oh my God, I gotta look at my phone. I gotta write these out later. All right, hello, how are you guys? So this is David. I'm at CEG right now in my Casino Quest shirt, and I am supposed to do a chat. And we've had a couple people ask sort of a new take on an old question. So how do you get to a high-end property? So, you know, we've talked about sort of evolving your career, you know, moving on from one place to the other, and we've sort of detailed how you break in and then you move on to a better casino. But this will be specifically about how you get to that top tier placement. So, you know, that's ultimately the goal. There's a lot of jobs that pay very well in Vegas. There's a lot of jobs that don't pay quite as well. We talk about how you start out as a break-in. You make about $14 to $18 an hour, sometimes up to $20 an hour, depending upon how good a break-in you are. But then the goal, right, is to get to a Bellagio, an Aria, a Cosmo, a Wynn, an MGM property, a Mirage property. And believe it or not, there's actually quite a few. Planet Hollywood, there's quite a few that are considered essentially top tier, where the pay is, you know, nearly as good as you would need it to be. Interestingly, we addressed this topic just this week. We had one of our dealers, he graduated about 3 years ago, and he just got into Bellagio, and he fast-tracked it. I mean, he literally started at Fiesta Rancho and moved on to, I believe, Sam's Town. Then he moved on, he's worked at South Point, Mirage, and he now got into Bellagio. So he has been on the fast track of casino growth. 3 years is absolutely pretty amazing, realistically. I've heard of people getting to these properties a little bit sooner, but only with a lot of juice. And by that I mean, you know, their friends and family works there. They got in the business based on their recommendation, and they sort of fast tracked. They knew what games they needed. They had all the connections to get to those properties to start them in. But it's still a process. I mean, me and Alex have dealt with this a couple times before. You can't jump from even a break-in casino to a high-end casino. It takes time to develop, you know, the acumen, the presence, all the things I'm going to talk about now to get to that high-end property. This dealer, by the way, he got there on his own merits. I mean, he literally is a fantastic dealer. He has a great control of the game. He's got great presence. He knows all the games. He literally checks off, you know, all the boxes that you know, casino managers are looking for. He happens to be somewhat young, and so, you know, he sort of fits into a new demographic. They're looking at someone who's a little more dynamic, sort of upgraded personality, that type of thing. So, you know, congratulations, by the way, and I'm looking forward to me and Alex looking forward to the Sterling Buffet. Yes, young man. Okay, so how do you get to high-end properties? So we can go down a list. There's quite a few that would be considered sort of top tier, and by that I mean it's a property where you get there and you're not looking to, you know, move on anytime soon. I mean, you know, Bellagio is like one of those properties. You get to Bellagio and basically, you know, that's the end of the road. There's just no better. You know, believe it or not, as far as money goes, there are properties that open up in other markets where, especially if it's a new casino or it's a new market that opens, the dealers can make phenomenal sums of money, but they're not in the same sort of league that a Bellagio is. A Bellagio has a certain type of very cultured, very specific customer that you have to get to, you know. So for example, I opened Players in Lake Charles, Louisiana when it first opened, and the dealers did really well, probably as well or better than a Bellagio dealer would today for at least the first, I think, couple of years. But, you know, those were locals who were just had an appetite for gambling, and, you know, these were, you know, friends and family coming in and playing, so the tokes were fantastic. You know, this is sort of a different thing. So it's not just about the money, it's about sort of the, you know, the presence, the attitude, the type of action that you're dealing, the type of customer that you have walking in the door, you know, the environment, the management, all those things play into, you know, sort of what we consider, you know, the top tier properties. And that type of dynamic is shared across, you know, Aria, Bellagio, Wynn, I know I mentioned them already, but Planet Hollywood, Mirage, the list goes on and on. It's actually quite a few really good jobs on the strip nowadays. Venetian is definitely in that list. Palazzo's in that list. Okay, what does it actually take? So here's what it takes. The first thing on my list is the games. You gotta know all the games. So in order to even get to the property before you get to the highest tier property, you gotta have all the games. They're gonna ask that you know at least 3 main games and maybe some carnival games. By carnival, we mean, you know, Pai Gow, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, 3-card flush, these types of games that you find a lot of center strip casinos that really cater to tourists. Tourists love these games, you know, for whatever it's worth. There's a lot of dealers that aren't that fond of them, some that like them, some that don't. I personally love to deal Pai Gow. I like to see how people set their Pai Gow hands. I like to play Pai Gow, of course. So that's one of the carnival games that I enjoy. War, I know how to play War. I don't get why anybody plays War at a casino, you know, but it's one of those things. So realistically, you gotta have the games. And amazingly, when we have those conversations with students when they first sign up, and we recognize that, you know, people are in different situations. Maybe they can only afford to pay for 2 games, 3 games, whatever the case is. But realistically, the more games you know, even straight out of school, so that way you can get your practice in, get your game time in at the casino that you start at, you know, and start getting practice dealing those games. But ultimately, to get to a Bellagio, to get to a Mirage, to get to some of these high-end properties, you need to know as many or all the main games as possible. And by that we mean it's Blackjack, Roulette, Baccarat, and Craps. In some cases, you may be able to take out like a Roulette or Baccarat, but make sure you have at least Blackjack and Craps, and then Roulette or Baccarat to move around. Craps is a big key, opens a lot of doors, especially early on. And then ultimately, even now, if you know Roulette will lead you into single zero roulette, which a lot of casinos are looking for, single zero dealers, especially, you know, casinos that deal out, you know, high limit action. Okay, so all the games absolutely clear. If you're looking specifically to learn, you know, you ask, okay, what carnival games should I know out of school? We usually tell people Pai Gow, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, 3-card flush. Those are sort of the top 3. I will say Pai Gow especially, because Pai Gow is literally almost everywhere. It's been around for a very long time. The rest of the games are sort of a mix. It really depends on where you go. The next really big thing other than the games, I will tell you, is personality, engagement. So if you're one of these people that love to, you know, communicate, you like to talk, you love people, that's gonna go really far. If you gotta fake it every day you're in at work, you know, that comes across later on. You know, these casinos are really looking for people that have a great personality, that want to engage with the customers. You know, you ask not just what their name is and continue dealing, but you're willing to like go and ask them like where they're from and have a communication, talk about them. And this is sort of the new dynamic. You know, personality is big, customer service is big, engagement is big. Years and years ago, you got to these high-end casinos by dummying up and dealing. That was sort of a thing, right? In fact, there absolutely are situations where you want to dummy up and deal, where you can't, you know, have a conversation. A lot of high-end players, just don't want to talk. You know, they don't want you to wish them good luck. They don't want small talk. They just want to deal the cards, and they want you to deal them as fast as possible, or whatever the case is. And so, you know, you have to reserve that personality, you know, for that player. But in general, casinos now are looking for people that are fully engaged, that are willing to, you know, say hello, talk, and have fun and enjoy themselves. You know, I will tell you that if you go downtown and you come across some of the older dealers at some of these sort of lower tier properties, and there's no takeaway, these are, you know, there's everybody, you know, fits a different role, but you'll ask yourself, you'll interact with these dealers, and there's a reason why some of them are there. You know, sometimes you know, it's easy to get jaded in this business a little bit. It's easy to sort of, you know, fall in reserve, to say less for whatever reason. You know, maybe you just get bored of dealing blackjack, you get bored of dealing the same game over and over again. So these are sort of the things that you know, normal people deal with. I personally love to talk, as most of you know. So for me, personality is a thing. You know, when I'm on a dice game, I don't mind if a guy is even stroking me. And when I say stroking, I mean in terms of betting, betting strokes. So that's the thing. You know, people bet. You know, there's a lot of weird bettors out there. There's a lot of people like to work, you know, evolve different strategies, things like that. I never minded those things. You know, in my opinion, they're there to play their money however they want. They're there to have fun. It's their money, so you know, why not? I have fun with them. I know dealers that you know, get a little peeved. They only like to work certain types of action. They don't like to be full service dealers. They'll tell the player, oh, that's a self-service area. You know, realistically, if you're a dealer, you can full service, especially a crap dealer. You can full service the whole game. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of dealers that will be like, I don't know, that self-service area. I don't want to hand off. You know, they're just lazy. That's all. I hand off all my come bets. I pay on the field. Not to say that that's always the right way. There's some casinos that would rather you know, fix their bets and do that. But anyway, so personality, customer service, very big in the industry. In fact, we have many casino managers that come into CEG and they literally say it's 50-50 now. You know, it used to be like 70% skill set, 30% personality, and now it's literally 50-50. They would rather you not be the best dealer, but have a great personality, and then they're willing to train you to be a better dealer. The next part that I put emphasis on is sort of relevant experience. So I will add that when we have conversations with our dealers, we tell them to, if they're looking to get into the Bellagio, the Arias, it's about having a relevant experience. And by that we mean, you're dealing to customers that they have, some type of shared reality. So for example, if you find yourself dealing at some, valley casinos, that is not representative of the types of action, the types of players that come into a Bellagio high-end property, right? There are, interestingly, a number of pits, on the strip that do share, that without them, they might not be a top-tier property, but they deal to some high-level customers, or they have an active high-level pit where you'll see at least some of this action being played out. A organization like Aria, for example, Bellagio, whatever, will look at that as relevant experience. In many cases, it's also relevant management. Like, we literally know of a manager who literally worked for a high-end property, is now the VP of a different property, and manages the pit like he did that high-end property. So that high-end property looks very favorable on this person's pit. You can actually jump from this person's casino right to a higher tier property, just based on the knowledge that this is the casino manager, this is how they run the show, and it's very comparable to how their casino is managed, right? So it makes it very easy to sort of fit in. You learn a lot of the same procedures, a lot of the same policies, a lot of the types of engagement or the dynamic between the player and the dealer are shared. So it's very easy to plug these dealers into that environment. So relevant experience is absolutely a thing. The same types of betting action, the same types of rotation around the games. The next part of this I will get to is scale. So a lot of times it's an interesting, and one of the reasons why we have our Dice Master course, for example, is a lot of times it's about scale. You can go from a lower end property, dealing, $5 games, $10 games, a little slower tables. Many of you dealers know that that's true. And now all of a sudden you're at this other property and you've got, either 800 across or 8,000 across, or whatever the case is. The betting scale has changed. The types of players has changed. The types of buy-ins, the marker action has changed. And so, dealing with these checks on a live game sort of messes you up a little bit. It's a whole different reality. So we have a lot of dealers that, are working on getting into these higher tier casinos that come back and they want to see, bigger bets on the table because they don't experience those at the casinos that they work at. So we absolutely work with them to do that. So we have a lot of dealers that do come back. And we present them with scale. We show them what it looks like at a Caesar's Palace property. You know what I mean? How they work their Barbary pole, how they set up their bets on the game, how they work, $5,000 checks, $25,000 checks, this type of thing. And what these max tables or what these contract tables look like when you have somebody who buys in for, let's say, $1 million. And how those checks play out on the table. So that's a thing. So understanding and recognizing scale, because when you go to these higher tier properties and they test you or they audition you, they're going to put some big bets on the table because that's what they want to see you handle. I mean, it's easy, obviously, to push off a $5 bet. You've been doing it for years, probably. I mean, there's nothing to paying $5 blackjacks or $10 table. It's when the guy walks up with $15,785. How are you going to break it down? How are you going to play a blackjack? You know what I mean? How are you going to play split? I mean, what are you going to do with that bet? And then sort of managing that money, laying it out for the camera, getting, doing all the signals and approvals, all that stuff, and how that plays out. That's what they want to see you handle, right? They want to see you pay that bet, manage that money accurately, with presence, with command. And quite honestly, these are the auditions you can't shake on. So that's the next one, is nerves. So you have to have presence on the game. So after scale, presence. Presence on the game means being able to sort of command the table. You own the table. This is your blackjack table. You run the action, okay? You don't have players running you over, right? Every time when you go, everything that you do is very procedural. It's very much in control. You're very much in control. And when you're having these types of auditions, you're not shaking. You're nervous the first couple years, the first couple properties, but by the time you get to some of these top-end casinos, you should have control over your nerves. You should be able, your management of the table, of course you're going to be nervous. I mean, everybody's nervous going for these big jobs, but ultimately you should be able to handle the action, with presence, with command. And that's a big thing, especially on a dice game. On a dice game, being able to manage, 8 people. And then it could be, if you're at a high-end property, you might have 8 people with some serious cash, some serious market play, whatever the case is. And you need to, own the action. You can get run over very quickly, especially if they're coming down with a lot of weird bets. And sometimes people with money don't necessarily, care. They just throw it down. We have what they used to call trunkers. They just chunk down these big bets to throw on numbers. They have no idea what they're doing, but still, you have to be able to manage the bet in real time, accurately and proficiently. You can't start shaking, because all of a sudden you've gone from a $100 player, to a $10,000 player. Interestingly, I can tell you, I have literally stepped in and had to tap out, a shaking dealer who was actually a very good dealer, very competent, very capable dealer, but all of a sudden they get thrown off by a big player's action. They start shaking, they get nervous, and even if the casino is confident they can execute, it just makes them a little nervous, that they're a little nervous, and so there you go. So absolutely, presence is the thing. The next part of it is looking the part, okay? Quite amazingly, we have sent people on auditions to high-end casinos, and let me tell you, you need to absolutely look the part. I mean, this is the time when you go out and you buy, even if you've been at a place that sort of put up with you having this frumpy shirt, this is the time to go buy a high-end shirt, a high-end nice belt, like a legitimately nice belt, maybe some real supple Italian leather type of belt, some really nice slacks. I mean, invest in yourself, look the part of a high-end dealer. Even if it's like a little hint of jewelry. I mean, you don't have to go all gaudy, this type of thing. Shave, be well manicured, get a haircut the day before, maybe pay a little extra money for the haircut so it looks very manicured. But without a doubt, if you're going to that audition, absolutely look the part, look very clean, be very well manicured, and then go in there and own it. So there you go. That's David's guide to getting into a high-end property, and I hope it's useful for some of you out there. And if you need some more information, I welcome you to stop by the school and pick my brain. I'm here at CEG Dealer School, and like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye.